This one, it's pretty sliced up. If that starts happening, then you're going to want to change it out and get a different piece. But always have a piece underneath. So, this mat cutter is a bit different than other mat cutters that you may have seen. It's a little bit more complicated. I can't reach this. So, since my mat isn't actually a size, I'm just going to cut a make-believe window size. So I'll just go, I'll stick to what we said there, so 2.5 by 1. So there's two kind of, or I guess I should say 3 scales on here that determine where your cuts are. So this scale and this scale are going to determine how far down your cuts start and end. And then this one is going to determine how far in it is. Does that make sense? So if you're cutting, let's say you're cutting this line, you need it to be 2 inches in and 1.5 inches on the top and bottom. So you would set this scale at 2, and this scale, which this is not supposed to be there. At 1.5. Bless you.
That was a weird sneeze.
So this should always stay on here. I don't know why it wasn't. So then you'll put your mat in. This is going to be a really weird mat too, since it's such a weird size that I'm giving. So then this little piece needs to be flush to the end of the mat there, and then you want to make sure to screw it tight, because that's gonna. There's a magnet on this side, and then there's a magnet on here that's gonna keep it that at the 1.5 inches in. Okay? So then I have this set at 1.5 inches, I have this set at 2. So then this is the blade that you're going to use. So you just push down the blade quickly, and you hold it down, and pull until you get to the other side, and then lift up. Then, since this side needs to be the exact same, you can just flip it. Put it down, make sure that's flush, and this goes back to the top until the magnet touches. Push down, pull, stop. Okay? So then, since you cut both of these sides, then you need to change this to the opposite one. So you're going to have this at 1.5. And then you're going to move these to 2. And then this slides all the way down, so you have your measurement back there. And then pull down to the end. Make sure everything's straight every time you do this. And then your window should come out. So, ta-da, there's your window. Now, one quick note. Whenever I'm cutting mats, I always like to set my measurements a little bit, let's see, it'd be a little bit less than they're supposed to be. Because if you cut too far, you guys can kind of see that it cut too far and it left a little line right there. Those are what we call crow's feet. So you want to try to avoid those crow's feet. So I always cut a little bit less than I technically need to so that it doesn't go that far. And then, if I can sneak in here, if you guys ever need more blades, there used to be a bunch in here. I'll just figure out where they went. If you ever need more blades, there's supposed to be some in there. You always want to make sure your blade is super sharp and fresh, because otherwise when you're cutting you can get really fuzzy edges and those are bad. So if I were you, I would recommend going out and getting a pack of blades. They're pretty cheap. Just make sure you get the model number of this, and it says blade 267. You can get them at Hobby Lobby. But I think it's always a good idea to have your own blades, because then you have full control over things. But if you're cutting your mat, and let's say you use my technique so you didn't cut all the way to the corner and so your mat's stuck in there. So the techniques or the trick that I use to do that is you just slide a spare blade, an unattached blade in until it kind of is at the angle of that cut. And then you just slide it over and wiggle it until it frees one corner, go on to the other side, do the same thing. Does that make sense? Okay. That way you can kind of control your corners a little bit more so you can avoid crow's feet. You do want to make sure you're at the same angle as the mat board because this isn't just a straight, flat, up and down cut. And so you want to make sure you're at that same angle, otherwise you're going to have a little dip there and it'll look a little bit funky. Okay? So one other quick note, when you have your mat board, there's going to be a front and a back. So on this one, where the text is going to be the back of the mat. You always want to make sure that you do your measurements and any writing that you have to do on the back of the mat. Otherwise, obviously when you cut it, you're going to flip it over and you're going to have writing on there. Also, the back of the mat should be up when you, I did it the opposite on this one because I wasn't paying attention, but the back of the mat should be facing up when you cut. Because otherwise, the angle will be facing the wrong way. So like on this one, I had the good side facing up, and now the angle is going so that the bad side needs to be up. So always have bad side up. Okay? Any questions about that?